On air? Anyway, so we are back, and theoretically we will be able to...
Karin Kanzuki. Akuma Dominici.
You must aim for the highest level.
Alright then. Can you hear us? And see us and all of these things? Indeed. Alright then. So, I have... not this. So, sorry for the trouble, everyone. We had some interesting technical challenges. I'm Kanzuki Dynasty, and my friend Just Vine is here, although due to our technical difficulties, she won't necessarily be on mic. We are working on finalizing our AkumaBot and working out and inputting the final inputs. This is one of the 2MK training mode programs, such as you can find on 2-mk.org, and they are basically custom AIs for Street Fighter V that take advantage of the interesting and complex playback recording feature in ways that you will soon see more of. So I have Rillian on stream with me, and you should be able to hear her over the PlayStation Party chat. And we are going to be taking a look at the AkumaBot and going through finalizing the inputs. So, without further ado, where shall we begin? Alright. Alright. And then I will pop open 4 and have a look. Alright, so... something like that. Although I see that I get the Shoryuken V cancel if I am even a moment. Anyway, I believe I can input this correctly. So what do you want me to do here? Oh, well, I think that my setting is such that you should be. Well, I will check mine again
And
after you've
here we go.
verified yours are correct.
No, this should be fine now.
Alright. I'll give you a moment to confirm that you are in fact audible on stream.
So,
Are we good to go then?
yes, we are in fact good to go. I'll repeat in brief what I was saying before we had my own technical faux pas. We are changing the recording of 4 in order to give Akuma some time at the beginning where he does nothing, in order to allow a demon flip empty. We can actually have him walk back and forward a little bit because both reasons are that, one, this will cause you to spend a certain amount of time doing it without thinking too hard about it, and secondly, just having him walk forward is probably useful in certain cases. So what I'm going to suggest is that you have him walk forward a little, backward a little, hold down back for a short time. Then go into the red fireball, which is a quarter circle backward with, in this case, heavy punch, but we can use heavy and light because it's not going to matter. And further from there, do the V cancel with light Shoryu hidden in the fireball. So you're looking for a full half circle backward motion at this point. And it should have no EX version if you choose to do it with any combination, but presumably heavy should be in there, because it changes the properties of the move otherwise. It does have an EX version. That is not something that I have ever seen anyone do. Wait, probably I just couldn't tell. Either way, let's go with just heavy, because we don't really want this bot using up too much of its fireball pressure. That is definitely an interesting thing that someone can take on and use later on. Doesn't seem to be affected by V-trigger specifically. So, overall, if you know the input timing for the V-cancel, you should not have any problems with it. It will not be possible to do it any other way because obviously the fireball will be coming out and it will be a thing. So, walk forward a bit, walk backward a bit, crouch block probably, and then start into the system. Interestingly, it appears even more useful in that he can apparently cancel out of the red fireball into V-trigger, which helps a lot because we didn't really care whether or not it was hidden in a picture. You just wanted it to be in there. So, I guess. But probably it's more interesting that he can do that. Yeah, he has the good cancels. Either that or you have to do that really much faster than you're doing it. At this point, you should probably turn off the timer, which will stop you from having to wait through the system or burning out the meter altogether. So you're looking for, I believe, minimum start on his V timer, which will allow you to do the cancel without actually going into V trigger for any length of time.
The recording is ready and set if we wanted to end it after the V cancel. I just realized I had my mic off. Sorry about that.
Well, let me see something with that then, and don't open it again, but just so long I can read the inputs. Because I must verify a particular part of it.
Did I turn off his gauge? Oh, I turned off my gauge, or what?
Because what you're doing is cancelling directly out of the fireball, which is not what we're aiming for here, or he will completely lose the Shoryuken. We need the light Shoryuken, and for that light Shoryuken to end at down forward so that you can be cancelled while holding it down forward.
Okay, so we're hiding a Shoryuken in the fireball and canceling the Shoryuken?
Yes.
Alright, let's see what I can do here. Forward, backward block. And V cancel. Only have to actually do the back. So forward, backward block. Scale that up now. I'm putting in everything except the button is coming early. Alright. Jeez, I completely lost it now. Alright. Forward, backward block. That's wrong because there's a kick in there and the Shoryuken's in that spot. So, forward, back. I put the V cancel in instead. Putting some Shoryuken. I V cancel.
For those of you who aren't familiar, part of the reason why inputting bots is actually so difficult is usually because you have to tell yourself how to do something. You'll have the same problem a lot of the time when doing trials. Also, please note, Kanzuki, that this must be a light Shoryuken.
Oh, it does
which
it.
is
Okay.
what makes it
Right.
difficult.
Oh dear.
I mean, the fierce one will work, but
It
it won't
worked
work
out.
as well for what we're trying to achieve here. When one does trials, especially not with one's own character, you end up trying to learn entirely new things that your brain is not used to. And a lot of the time, because the sequence is unfamiliar, but you're trying to learn the whole sequence at once, you can end up really confused as to what exactly should be done. And the conversion between what you're thinking about and what actually happens in your touch are very, very different. There's also the issue of extreme input leniency in this game, which can allow for shoryukens to be done in all sorts of strange ways. If you play other games, you're aware that the shoryuken motions in those games are much more strict about many things. So they tend to care more if you actually get the motion correct, whereas Street Fighter is really lenient. You can like double tap down forward and have other weirdness happen. The reason why this is important here is because you're trying to get the cancel to specifically happen when you are holding down forward on the pad or the stick. But so many of us are used to just doing the whole motion and not caring whether or not it ends up at down forward specifically, that we don't actually deal with that at all. Unfortunately, the extremely lenient shortcut is not really a good way to do this either, because it will both rob you of the chance of Akuma randomly doing super or other strange things, and also change the overall setup. One other thing I will often suggest to people when doing things with bots, if their execution is not that great, is to make sure that you attempt the entire thing, no matter what, no matter how often you failed at it in a particular way or similar, and get used to pressing the option button just enough to see whether or not your recording has been done correct. Fortunately, if you do not record a new action before you actually change off, in other words, if you hit options to stop the recording, hit options again to what would normally be restarting the recording, but just to look at the inputs, and then do it again, it will keep the input that you were using before, so you get the chance to check whether you got it right or not, confirm that you got it right, or start over.
As you see here demonstrated. Putting in some inputs. Exit out. Go back to that recording, but since I don't start it, it's still there. Alright, so I'm only going to be able to pull this off, at least with, well, this has to be a hidden input anyway, so I don't get any visual confirmation. However, I think I have the timing down for the shoryuken cancel in any case. And I've added a button for myself to make it actually possible for sure. So, trying this again from the beginning, before I get into the real recording, although I suppose it doesn't hurt. I'll need to do it from up close. No, I don't. I'm psyching myself out here a little bit. The goal is to walk forward, walk back a little bit, crouch, half circle back forward, and then shoryuken, decancel, and exit. So. But I don't want to decancel with that.
Fortunately for this recording, it really does not matter if the shoryuken ends at down, so if there is a difficulty in the input and the down motion comes out wrong, it's not really as concerning.
Oh dear, it is a shoryuken, huh? I'm trying to do it out forward, so it has to look like that. Forward, so. Alright.
Now fortunately, with many of our bots, there's a large amount of input leniency that is available to you. Unfortunately, the hardest part that no leniency will usually give you is the difficulty in ending the recording at the right moment. And it's frustrating to have that be the reason why you were unable to complete a bot recording, similarly to how it is difficult to deal with these things when you're trying to do trial. But this is why I suggest making sure that you get used to ending your recording and therefore going through the whole process of making the recording. So we're checking. It looks like this one would work, but it seems as if there was some unintended mashing earlier on.
So let's see, this one right here now that I've just recorded appears to have forward, down, forward for the Shoryuken. They're not even. So I need to do this again, it looks like. Forward, back. That doesn't have a V cancel in it.
For those who have difficulty inputting bots, there are other ways to deal with the hidden inputs, as well as simply accepting that if you are having difficulty inputting it, let's say that a particular input takes you 15-20 minutes, 15 to 20 minutes can be actually normal for getting a bot perfectly installed. But if you find that you're having much more trouble than that, or you don't have the level of patience that some are capable of, it is usually true that managing without as much of that can still give you a bot which you can usually manage some workable things for, especially if you are actually lower in bronze or just consider yourself a beginner person. If you are not able to input these things, even the acceptable versions that are specifically noted to be easier, the chances are not that you're going to get nothing out of the bot, or even that your execution is bad. Because even for those who come up with these things, the sheer amount of time spent inputting things based on the difficulty of doing the equivalent of a trial, usually with very little visual confirmation, means that there's a big reward for it at the end if you get to spend lots of time up against that bot, but there's a certain amount of time investment in putting it in. What you can do from there is leave out certain parts of it and just add the salient parts. Obviously this won't make you specifically good enough to deal with it, but if you can get all of your points off of the easiest version, you will still have learned something. And usually, having done that, it will give you at least some incentive to go back and grind a bit to get the new one out, while still having got some benefit from the overall work.
The Shoryuken looks smashed, but it might work anyway.
Fortunately, it doesn't matter too much if the Shoryuken is smashed. So I would say that that probably is set as is. It does not look to me as if there's any flaw in the current recording, therefore we can move on to one of the others, given that this was relatively easy to do.
Everything is here, but the Shoryuken will not V-cancel. However, he can V-trigger at some random point.
I'm fairly sure that Shoryuken can be cancelled, but it's going to be difficult to...
Well, I got it. No, he whiffed it, so I actually wouldn't know, would I? How on earth would I even test that?
So just don't worry about it. Let's proceed for now. Because this is exactly what I'm talking about. If you don't know for sure that something is going to work exactly as planned, so be it.
Alright, well, in that case,
we've got him throwing some stuff, and now we're moving on to the other minor adjustments that needed to be made. I think there were 2, and they're not that big a deal. The first is to change the
he can also
action 2, I believe. So make sure and verify that the action 2 recording is as expected. It should be a throw, and then the crouching.
Throw into crouching, medium punch, medium kick.
Right, so let's see if we can get in at the very least in medium kick, light kick at the end rather than the rest. Depending on how your fingers feel, go for medium punch, light punch, medium punch, light punch, and finally medium kick, light kick. This will give him multiple rise options in quick succession, and generally make it easy to get messed up in a particular form of how he moves, but without changing anything else about him.
Alright, so, sorry, say that again. What is the goal here for this input?
We are doing a throw that can land on the opponent at this point in order to make them work out. Once that throw is in motion, you are attempting to put in medium punch, light punch, medium punch, light punch. These buttons are together, of course, and a visible medium kick, light kick, crouching, all of these, end the recording after the medium kick, light kick, and you should be good.
So something like that. Both of the punches are visible?
Both of the punches will be visible when he has whiffed the throw.
So the timing for that would be something like...
But when the throw is actually done and connects, the punches should probably both be hidden. You can mash it, well, I would try not to mash the button too much, but you can press them fairly close together, I believe.
I'm going to cheat
Overall
here a
though,
little
your
bit.
timing is what you're looking for and what you're currently doing. The timing you're seeing is approximately the correct timing. This is what we noted in a previous stream where Takedo uses this as a block string, and you're familiar with it relatively from playing Kami and Karin yourself, so just use the timing you use when you're trying to pressure with their stuff.
The kicks, are they supposed to be visible if a throw connects?
The kick can be visible if the throw connects. It's only the crouching medium punch and the two crouching medium punches that need to be hidden. Please note
Alright,
again
I
that
can
all
put
of
that in.
these must be crouching moves.
Ah, yes, got it. In that case, down back is fine, I presume?
Down back is fine.
How's that for you? The inputs are flawless for a forward throw, 2 hidden sets of the punches, and the kicks. Come out just after and I cut them off with the recording. So let's see then if I can...
I believe that there's nothing to be worried about in this one, and it will probably be best to see whether or not it interacts correctly with the others. Now there's one final thing that I know that we discussed with Justine that she's probably better off with a particular thing in here, but I'm beginning to think that we should probably fix it a bit more.
Would you like me to put her on?
It's mostly a matter of a particular fix to Action 1 that she did personally after we realized that EF Demon Flip was not a good candidate for Action 1. So we are going back to Action 1, and we are using a light Demon Flip into an instant throw, and
Alright.
let's hold jump not necessarily until anything really. It's basically just do the Demon Flip, instantly hit throw, hold up forward, and stop the recording. Basically, you can stop the recording and hold up forward at the same time.
So,
As long as it got in at all.
Demon
it's
Flip,
fine.
instant throw whiff, hold up forward and stop.
Yes.
Okay.
And again, do the throw as quickly as you can.
Uh-huh. Do I need to make sure that I can hold up forward faster than I can hold throw. Do I need to make sure I hold up forward after the throw specifically?
I believe that you do in fact need to do that, but I don't think it matters that much.
Alright then.
I mean, this is one of those recordings where, again, it's better off
Ending
to
it is the
just
hard
try
part.
to do it multiple times, do the entire recording and stopping, and just look for when you got it right and leave that one alone.
So let's see here. How's that?
Well, the difficulty in
There's 2
this was
throws in
that the
there.
input always causes an issue with having the extra heavy kicks in, so be a little careful with those.
Hold on, what now
The
about
fact
heavy
that
kicks?
the little heavy kick sneaks in is kind of a big problem, which is what we're trying to solve.
Oh,
you know.
I see here. Understood. No, not understood. Where does the heavy kick come from?
Possibly just your fingers slipping when you're trying to end the recording.
Understood.
It's very possible.
Got it,
for
and I see.
our
Yes, this is
particular
correct.
configuration to do that.
So... I might change my button config for a moment, but in the meantime, let's try this one more time. There. That might be correct.
Well, the only thing is that we have a minor concern that the light hit demon flip is not necessarily going to be sufficient. Fortunately, it's not going to matter. This is relatively easy to re-record. And we'll see what we get.
He can't grab me with this.
No, he can't, but he's not supposed to be able to grab you that way. He's not supposed to be able to grab you from 1-1 in the first place. It's just supposed to whiff like this. The question, therefore, is whether or not it is the first throw action or the second throw action that is causing the whiff thing, and for that you're going to have to turn on probably action... Actually, let's just do our test right now. If you turn on action 5 and the movements have been correct, you're likely to see a more accurate representation of what the two are supposed to do when they react. So our hope here is to have him do this and see if we can get him to not do the throw. If not, then the problem with the first recording is that the throw is not instant enough, and therefore you end up with him doing the throw out of the demon flip because it has to be really fast.
What is the goal here? The throw should...
The throw should not happen at all.
Because he doesn't have time
Now,
before he gets into demon flip for it to even be a throw.
That's the idea.
So
now,
technically, if I can
quite
see the
difficult
throw
to
at
do.
all after I make the recording, just watching number 2, it should be failing. On the first run. So let me put the replay interval up a couple, and put number 5 back off.
Unfortunately, that makes this very difficult to test because the way that the replay interval works in here, it's not really an interval. It just tells you how long before the replay actually starts.
True.
Which means that it will immediately attempt to replay action 1 multiple times and sort of mess with our problem. But you can do that, yes.
However, I
And
have
we can
confirmed
see
that
the
I have
throw
confirmed by
is
this
the problem
technique
here.
that he did throw.
Yes. So it is entirely possible that either you input too quickly,
Oh,
sorry, too slowly, or
Quite likely.
perhaps it's impossible for him to hit another button without changing the demon flip immediately, but as far as I remember, this is not the case.
This is in fact recording 1, so let's try this again.
So here's an easy test for us to do. You should attempt to, in your own recording in slot 1,
Aha!
do demon
I did
flip
it.
into throw,
It works.
and... oh, okay then.
I just need to get the up part and the proper stop, and we'll be good. Because he went and did the empty kick bit this time through.
Alright then.
So,
However, that
that was a throw.
is obviously going to be a little bit difficult to do quickly enough and still hold the 1 and still do everything else,
I
but...
believe I just did it.
oh good then. Well, again, for anyone who
that
is
was-
actually trying to do this,
Not a throw. Never mind. Did I try to do the throw
one of the ways to
manually?
solve
I
this
did.
is to effectively mash the light punch. Depending on your inputs and the buttons you're using. Unfortunately, I'm not sure that doing a full motion with throw will cause him to actually do demon flip, so you're gonna have to learn to come up with some trick to mentally think it, and that can be pretty difficult.
I've got it.
Fortunately,
He appears to be doing the standard demon flippy bit with throwing the inputs. So this should hopefully meet our
alright, looks like
requirements.
we're good for now, but... no, that's right. So 1-1 has now become the dive kick, which is what we were looking for. And the other throw in there is just there for the sake of being there. It has some other purposes, but you'll understand it more when we are seeing them more clearly. So the only other concern, as I said, is that unfortunately, it's entirely possible for this to be the wrong demon flip because of the spacing that you want him to use.
Alright, well, in that case, we're just going to figure that out. So,
So in order to test whether or not it is the correct demon type or not, we're gonna need to turn on actions 1 and 2, because we're looking for the spacing at which you end up blocking the crouching medium kick, and what happens when you do.
It looks
Right,
like
so
the
we see
punch
here
is
that
actually pushing me out too far.
It seems to us at this point that this is unfortunately, and it would have been good to know this from the beginning, unfortunately not the button we want for this particular demon flip. Even though obviously there will be many demon flips that people must deal with, we can't afford to put into the bot every demon flip possible, which raises some difficulty here. However, it might in fact be easier to record it just a little bit because you're not trying to hit the same button twice, and therefore it's a little bit easier. However, obviously for those who think that it is easier that way, you can just change your button configurations around in any way that makes recording the bot easier for you. Because since you're already using such complicated methods mentally to get things working, you might as well go as far as you need to go to get things perfectly put in.
Alright, and as you saw earlier, switching my heavy and medium buttons really made that inputting number 5, was it, much easier. So, now, should I be retrying this recording, number 1, with a medium demon kick instead?
Yes, you should. That is probably the only requirement here. And we're going to hope that that helps out overall. So, in order to construct a bot that is able to use heavy or light demon flip, you would have to reconstruct the way that he hits buttons in the first place. Unfortunately, that would be an exercise in coming up with a variation, but for those of you who feel as if the throw is not the difficult part of Akuma's mix-up, you actually have the variant that you can change it to, and we will add this information to the bot as well, where if you are a player who is used to responding to things really quickly, and who tries to respond to things with throws on the way in or similar types of anti-airs, you might in fact get a lot more out of having the light kick here instead.
It looks like I got it. Medium demon flip, throw in the inputs, and it's doing the dive kick. So let's put those two together.
And the good part about this is that it does give us a bit of a medium kick jump issue, and this is helpful because the entire reason for adapting this one was to give Akuma a separate aerial attack, or a separate aerial vector, that will possibly, depending on the strictness Capcom has put into his ability to do fireballs from that motion, allow him to jump and do air fireball at a relatively lower angle, or just throw out some other buttons in general, because if no button is considered to be hit when he uses the jump part of that, then he'll hit a different button altogether and we'll see more aerial things. This should raise the effectiveness of the bot and the difficulty of anti-airing it quite a lot overall.
So how does this look then?
Overall, this was exactly as planned, and you can go ahead and turn on everything for the final tests.
Alright then, final test time it is. Let's see here, everything up. I'll put you back to normal so that we can get a realistic experience, and I think this is correct.
Now, unfortunately, Karin does not have a lot of strong punishes for Akuma's actual regular Hadouken. Part of the reason why this bot is given limited meter is to force him to throw regular Hadoukens at some time, therefore making it impossible to consistently brief you with these things. overall, it should be a lot easier. But unfortunately, Karine does not have a fixed frame punish for basically anything. And the range at which Akuma throws fireballs is not normally one where punishing at all makes sense. However, that is the hard part of the bot and what you must learn to do overall there as well. Now, by entering certain motions in here, it gives him the ability to use Shoryukens that he does not expect. It comes up often in Shotos because, again, the input leniency is so high that you will still see just sometimes random fear Shoryukens because of other parts of the bot's behavior overall. But it shouldn't be enough so that you should be able to hang back and punish him all the time. It doesn't really matter given that he doesn't really give you any points for that. That will have to come from a different spot altogether. But you'll still see some light ones randomly popping out here and there. Mostly to do with when he jumps and what he does when he jumps and so on. And he has a shimmy. You should note that he has a shimmy because this is going to become a problem for you if you are not paying attention to when he's closing in. Now, whether or not you should actually use a point system involving punishing the shimmy is up to you really, because shimmies are only effective when you don't think they're going to be there. There are also cross-up situations in which it can... the inputs will get read in such a way that it will cause you to do PX Shoryukens, but it's unlikely this will ever hit you. In fact, you can probably make a small game out of if he ever does do that, then you probably went over his head at the time. And it will mean that you should dash in behind him and see if he can still get the punish, because Akuma spends an inordinate amount of time in the air after his particular EX Shoryuken hit his head. And you can probably give yourself a little bit of awareness training if you want to throw that in there, but it does not make any sense to make that a heavy part of the game.
Noted I can do that. Not that any creature ever used that at that range. So in terms of how one gets points off of him, we're back to the original concept. He's very, very tightly programmed relative to most bots. Most bots are intended to use a full 60 frames or 54 frames, sometimes 48 frames, for their actions, so that you end up with a lot of things that can be controlled in terms of how they come out. But this bot is given slightly shorter from some of its actions. Not very easily noted, but short enough that you can see some strange behaviors, especially in terms of when he jumps, being slightly different based on whether or not one of his moves is hit, etc. He'll have a lot of wake up, and he will have a lot of buttons coming right out of that wake up because of the way that the wake up is designed. Interestingly, he appears to have a frontal EX for Shoryuken, which is good to know because it has a lot of meaning to how the player deals with him. Just to feel that that's in there, that just maybe he'll make you miss it. And he also has the tendency to do cross-ups at a very specific range, and a lot of other little tweaks that will generally make you stress in the correct way to be considered an Akuma. We can't be absolutely sure that the EX Demon trick he does has a lot of good outcomes because it takes a bit longer to actually reach the point where he's actually started to do a button, and we can't therefore be sure that the shimmy that happens will be enough to cause that to work out that way. Plus, he is supposed to generally hit the light punch directly afterwards, which should alter and generally make him do punches, but there's some weird things that can happen there. And you don't care as much because most of the time when you watch someone do EX, they're not going for the grab, and they're probably, even if they go for the slide, you can usually learn to deal with it. If you're doing the slide, then you probably block. So the main thing you're aiming to do is learn how to get him out of the air and get an advantage on him, because it's not that easy to get advantage off of him when he does things that way.
Furthermore, the crouching medium kick option that ends, if that goes into the forward walk, it can cause you to be a little bit jumpy, and then to walk back out, similar thing. Overall, once your bot looks like this in the neutral and overall flow of it, especially if you have the instinct to throw people who walk in at you, it will help you train yourself to not necessarily do that. But it's not worth giving yourself points for that unless you realize that this is a problem you have in your play. Unfortunately, we don't have a way to make him get meter faster, but I'll ask that you turn on his meter to full and let's see exactly how frustrating he actually becomes, because there could be a different point system altogether for that scenario. Unfortunately, there's no real way to do that except possibly to, whenever he runs out of meter, set him to have a lot of it. But, as Just Fine noted, you can use this sort of thing to train yourself where you don't know what exactly to do. You can just put meter on and see if any new things emerge that will make you feel like you're gaining more out of the bot, generally more comfortable. But you should note that the point systems are usually put in a state where you can't win if they have full meter on a bot where you've been told that they are not supposed to. You can of course come up with your own variants on the point system to give yourself that. But you can assume that generally the thing is not going to be beatable in the standard way if you have given him full meter. For example, the Hadouken punish part of it will obviously never happen if all of his Hadoukens become safe. However, if you really want to do it, he's probably the sort of character where you can alter that and therefore give yourself a situation where you have a lot of it. I think that we have managed to get rid of his ability to do super, but that's probably not so bad because it's not really important to understanding Akuma's work at all. It looks like he's got most of the spacing down. The only thing that would obviously be a fault here is if he were to attempt the EX Demon Flip from the crouching medium kick, which is going to turn out to be basically useless and an easy punish for most people. But it's not worth taking out that or trying to say you can't get points under that very specific condition. That is generally not the way that we deal with bots, in that we basically go, there may be one way in this bot to get a specific thing under a very specific condition, basically that you just get 3 points. But for the most part, unless you get super lucky with the chains, that is not really going to do anything. So noting this, my question to you, Kanzuki, is whether or not that shimmy is actually affecting you, or if you're trying to throw him on purpose.
I'm really not even noticing the shimmy.
Well, so far I'm saying that because you have had him walk forward towards you, and you have at least twice so far attempted to throw him while he walked back up. So I was wondering if you were intentionally testing this, or
no.
just
that's just happening. I'm not really paying much attention to the shimmy at the moment. This is just my short throw reactions that I do as part of my autopilot. I at one point noted that the shimmy didn't work because I caught him on the way out.
Yeah, so you caught him on the way out because you did
long.
crouching medium kick at that time, which is the correct way to deal with shimmy.
I at one point, it was a while ago, but at one point I threw him out of a shimmy on his way back out.
Oh, well, that's just better reactions. But overall, I think it's worth keeping it in as it is.
I don't see any harm in it.
It may vary depending on the inputs that people use, how long they walk forward, how long they walk backwards. But you can also always tweak this to whatever you want to see it do. It's not necessarily useful for most other bots because while I would say that KoreanBot and KamiBot, well no, KamiBot doesn't really need it, but KoreanBot would probably benefit from having this because of how her buttons work and her walk speed. Chun-Li, iffy, because while Chun-Li blocks can there's not a bunch of really good buttons for her to hit at that range that would make you feel terrified. Whereas Akuma's very good at doing terrifying things. Unfortunately, quote unquote, the only thing we couldn't after it was the red fireball. So we'll see what happens there. It definitely means that if you try the throw though, it will work. We will definitely consider having a bot who basically has this variation in them, where they just walk forward, walk backwards, and then do nothing further. And for those of you who feel that you often get caught in weird things, that's a possible variation for basically any bot who you find that you don't need one of their actions, or feel as if you've gotten through everything. Especially earlier or easier bots when you have basically gotten your Shoryuken style punishes down, and you don't really feel as if you need that in the bot anymore. You can just change it to a forward walk, back walk, crouch lock sort of thing. Well, probably not that. Or just have them maybe throw out a button or throw out a shoot or anything that you think will get you to react to the idea that they're walking in right after it. And you'll see what you get. It's most useful specifically when the bot is ended on the recording in the walk back right there, because if you did hit something wrong, many of their moves will in fact punish what you're doing. Unfortunately, most bots don't have very quick startup early moves because we were using big ones and hiding things in them. So there will be probably a large study on exactly how to incorporate shimmy into bots in an effective way, and you can stay tuned on that on 2-mk.org for general bot concepts and how to make use of this more effectively. But for now, let us know if you actually come up with anything based on tests and see if we can work together and incorporate something there more useful. Now obviously since he throws the fireball there, you can check whether or not you want to jump in on him or solo. But this allows him to get space in that if you neutral jump him, it may mess up his stuff later. But that can happen. There's a lot of spacing dependent things that bots basically organically derive, and this is why we get these sort of testing to see if anything organic and new comes out of the bot to finalize a particular wonderful new thing. There are things that happen by accident in bot functionality that we sometimes put effort into making sure happen on purpose or happen more often. But as it stands now, our initial concept of what we should use for the system of how to get points on AkumaBot. We have increased his tendency to jump and the fact that he will just do random moves a bit too early into the jump sometimes, but overall it doesn't matter as much because we're training more so the reaction to jumping than which button you hit depending on what your opponent jumps in. And Akumas don't necessarily jump just like that. You have to train your overall anti-air reactions regardless, so we're not going to worry too much about the fact that he isn't timed perfectly into the jump, because if we were to try to change it, we would end up changing the beam flow. So we're going with this particular flow overall. But he is still jumped enough that giving anti-airs as an option is part of the easy points. Unlike before where the easiest form of point possible was Shoryuken, we'd assume that you've trained anti-airs enough on other bots prior that since Akuma is effectively fourth in the chain, he would probably not be one where anti-airs are something you can keep getting points from. You should have trained that before. So we're going to make it so that the easy version of Akuma, while you're getting used to him, will give you points for anti-airing him. But other than that, you're gonna have to just anti-air him to keep him from getting into position. Sometimes you could probably choose not to do it at all, but he's fairly heavy pressure character, so letting him get close to you might be your downfall overall. We're seeing a lot less of the being quick throw, presumably because the timing that was for it is much more difficult to see happen as an immediate thing. And there may eventually be some form of tweaking there, but obviously we're going to see less if the overall change made took away the flow itself. Right now we would have to see action 1 go directly into action 2, and action 1 having been a demon flip, to even potentially see a throw. So you could watch and test on that part, or we could just turn on 1 and 2 only and see if it works out, as a final verification of that. Overall though, we're not really looking for... Let's see. 2, 1, 2... That's too slow. It looks like it may be too slow to make that happen the way we wanted it to. But we can look into why in a bit. It may be something that other people can deal with more easily. But I can't easily tell why that's happening at the moment. That has a throw in it, definitely. It might be that the throw happens a little too early somehow. Fortunately, this particular thing would be very easy to fix.
Is there a kick output from a demon flip?
Yes, the kick output is the dive kick you're seeing. But that's not my concern at the moment.
But then isn't it that there's about 1 frame between that medium kick that starts the demon flip and the throw? So if I'm in a demon flip, I can't get a throw.
We're not looking for the throw to come out from action 1 into action 1. We're looking to see action 1 into action 2.
Alright, I don't remember what action 2 was, so...
Action 2 is, should be the immediate throw into the crouching stuff. So there's a small possibility that this is an easy fix, because all you would have to do if the throw is not happening at all from this. Fortunately, these are easy to fix overall. You could either put in the overall demon flip itself to end a little later, but it looks as if he's doing it right overall for our purposes.
I would not be totally surprised if the issue is that there's a height restriction on the demon flip throw activation, and I didn't quite end that early enough.
Or more accurate, I would say more so likely that you did do it right, but 1 into 2 means that since he throws instantly at the beginning of 2, at least I believe he does, the problem would actually be that he throws too early.
Oh. Well.
Which is relatively easy to fix.
Yes. Let me put it just on 1 for a moment and see if I can see this.
If you put it on just 1, he will usually... He should almost always do the dive kick, because the timing for it will be just enough that the kick will take priority.
The kick is happening before he has the opportunity to do the throw. I let the recording go on too long.
No, this is, again, that's not what you're trying to fix. The issue being that the kick is happening at the right time because the kick takes 6 more frames altogether. You input the kick, and that is what should have happened. The problem with this is that the throw at the beginning of action 2 is happening too quickly, and also, therefore, not being done out of the demon flip. It immediately attempts to do something directly after that, and loses the input that you wanted. The easy solution to this is to re-record action 2 with a slight walk forward before doing any of what is in it. This will both make the bot more difficult to deal with on the ground, and probably give us our demon flip back.
Shall we give that a shot then?
Yes.
So action
because
2
that will be
is...
the absolute finalization of this bot. There is nothing else I can see at this point that would need changing.
Alright, so the goal is to hit a throw, do that into that, and I want to walk forward a little bit before I do this, correct?
Yes.
So...
And for viewers, you can probably learn to do this by measuring the distance between Karin and Akuma to teach you how far you need to walk forward to throw, and use that distance to tweak the amount of time you spend before you throw.
Oops, put some extra stuff on the end. Why am I jumping? That doesn't make any sense.
As for retesting, it's obviously fairly easy. Just turn on 1 and 2 and wait until he does a demon flip, and if he doesn't throw, then you're fine. If he does a throw, then you're fine.
Alright, that's probably correct. Let's have a look. Actions 1 and 2. Doesn't look like it's working out.
No, it's pretty much correct now.
Oh, alright.
It's rarer, but it's working.
It's coming out. Alright, well then so be it.
It appears to have a slight possibility of not doing the throw even if it's 2, but I can't figure out exactly why that is. Presumably it has something to do with something else in the animations hitting or being caught. But that's also good because the throw is not necessarily the mix-up that you want for most of it, given that the idea that you want to anti-air the beam flip should be, or just react in general. You should generally be spending more time trying to stop the enemies that actually can hit you. So, reset some control buttons and let's see what we can get.
Would you like me to put everything back on, or just wait this a little bit?
Yes, I would like to see everything back on for at least a little bit, because there is the possibility that something else was at least mildly effective. But fortunately, since our specific aim was to change stuff in 2 and not to change the entire beam flip timing or anything similar to that, we shouldn't have lost anything. So for everyone, this will be the finalized AkumaBot that will appear on 2-mk.org, and we will come up with the simplifications that will be required to make it such that it's not too ridiculous input for those who do not have basically this amount of time, and let's call it dexterity, but it's much more of a mental issue to get this sort of thing in if you're not an Akuma player. This is the only character I can think of that I would actually suggest that if you really want to get good at this game and rise in rank specifically, if you've got the free fight money, this is the character to buy. If only because the bot is important to have. Guile bot is probably going to become important, but you can learn the skills required to fight most other characters, DLC characters, without specifically buying those characters. Many of the skills you require will have done it, and by the time you come up to the point of dealing with all of the upper level bots that we are going to make available, you will most likely have become comfortable with the ideas of pattern recognition required to either come up with your own ideas as to how to deal with bots, or how to deal with players, really. And if not, there's always the options of advice, of finding someone else who has one of those characters who will let you input the bot and test on their system if you're capable, or just, you know, doing what Capcom wants us all to do and spending more money on DLC. At the moment, the 200k team is being slightly stubborn in that there are so many of us that we don't technically need to all spend DLC money to have at least rudimentary concepts and access to bots. I'd also point out for many of us that even if you don't have access to a bot yourself, you can always watch someone else play it, or even watch one of our streams where we are just randomly playing against a bot. This often happens when we are doing a play-to-learn session in which we are playing live, dealing with casual matches, and one of the bots is on in the background, so you can get to see us playing against them just enough to give you some ideas of what to do with your own character, or maybe if you're in the stream and request it, as it doesn't affect who we are actually playing online, you can even request that we try to be it with a character we're not familiar with and see if we can get anything out of it. Ideas shared among the community is one of our primary goals, and therefore we'll be happy to help you out, at least for a short time, since those streams tend to not be as long.
In any case, it looks like we have an AkumaBot for the most part. Although I would like to see a bit more Demon Flip throw in him. So we might have to work out whatever the inputs are for that later. Just to make it a little more...
Well, that is an interesting thing, and once again, we can make available the potential variants since we've been to them, and anyone who is interested in seeing those variants in action can reference this video either in our YouTube archive or on Twitch for at least some time longer, and figure out whether or not they would like to change the potential inputs to make the focuses as they wish. At the moment, we're looking mostly at ways that you can use this to set up your own flow, and I think that in your case, you might want to change it back. Fortunately, the input itself, the primary input, in this case input 1, is generally not so hard to do correctly that you would spend too much time on it, so you could even consider it something you could just vary at your leisure. If you want to deal with a particular type of human flip, you lost a match against a human that does one more than the others, and you can just come in and modify it. The idea being that that input is the demon flip input, so you can always keep the spirit of an input, and since obviously the original inputs will always be available to you, you don't have to worry about forgetting them. As long as our site is up, they will be there for you to have access to and re-enter at anytime you want. Of course, get in touch with us. Contact information is on said site. If you have anything specific that you would like to check or input into a bot, or even just analyze as a bot concept to see if you can get something out of it. If you've come up with your own bot concept and would like us to take a look at it and see if you can either improve it or just give a general idea of what happens when someone else fights it, or just to see what happens when someone else inputs it, just to get a different perspective on potential interactions. It is quite common that due to minor differences in frames and differences in dexterity, things do turn a little bit different from one bot to another. RuBot on one machine is not necessarily the same as RuBot on another machine until we are given or find some way to share bots blatantly between systems. But it looks like all of the conceptualizations and visualizations I had in mind for this bot are intact, including that empty rolling flip. So all we can do now is release it to the world and hope it is helpful to everyone. Well, since we will be looking out next week for the release of the mystery character who shall not be named, namely Ed.
Shall not be named Ed, to be more specific.
Let's hope it is not that he shall not be named Ed, because we will be very upset.
Shall not be named anything other than Ed. How about that?
And unfortunately, since Capcom has decided that there will definitely be maintenance in Street Fighter tomorrow, we may end up providing a special stream of us fighting various bots during the time of the maintenance. Since obviously another great part of bots is that they don't really require the servers to be online for you to get your grind on. But look out for that tomorrow. It's obviously not finalized. However, there's a good chance that at least one of us will be available to demonstrate some bots. Potentially even the Guilebot prototype, or AkumaBot, which could just as easily go up without this because AkumaBot is basically done. We hope you enjoyed the stream, and we hope to hear from you, or at least to share these with you in further streams coming up next week. From Really Inside, I'm signing off.
And this is Kanzuki Dynasty saying thank you for watching, and I hope you learned a little bit about bots, a little bit about Akuma, or a little bit about something. And come visit our website at 2-mk.org, both now to see our Ken, Ryu, and Nikali bots, or in a little while, although not too little a while, I have to eat dinner after all, to see our AkumaBot and other such things. Have a nice evening. Bye.